Hello, everyone. This is Andi Gray from Strategy Leaders. Welcome to you. We're going to wait a minute or two. Robin's going to tell me when to get going. People are still gathering, and we're a couple minutes early yet. So we'll let you get your last cup of coffee and get settled in, get your notepad and pen out, and then we'll get started. I hope everyone's having a great day today. Where I am, it's stopped snowing, so that's a good thing. And I hope you're having warmer weather wherever you are.
People are rolling in. Give them another minute. I think we'll be ready to go.
Okay, sounds great. Just let me know when.
Will do. All right. I think we can jump in.
Okay, great. So welcome everyone. Today, our webinar is talking about your exit timeline and the challenges that every business owner faces, some more successfully than others, and why waiting to plan, among other things, costs you money. And as we get into this, it seems painful now when you start to make that shift from running the business to figuring out what exit looks like and can be for you. And so, if you're like a lot of business owners, you end up avoiding the subject or certainly not dedicating yourself to it. But what you'll find out is that the pain down the road when you avoid the topic may be so much greater than the pain of starting to make that shift now. There are all kinds of waiting to focus on something more than running the business, waiting to plan for an exit or to put pieces in place, to know the facts about the business and its value, waiting to do something aggressive to achieve the value you want, or waiting to talk to family and partners and employees about what comes next, or waiting to understand and prepare for your options in order to cash out. But what you'll find is that business owners often end up waiting until they're forced to act, and then they end up acting under suboptimal conditions. And today we're going to dig into the whys and hows of getting what you want from the business when you want it, and what to avoid as you go down that path. So, with that in mind, we're going to take a minute here and introduce you to Strategy Leaders. Strategy Leaders was built on research at Columbia University. We've been around for 30 years. Our focus is helping business owners and their management teams grow and exit on their terms. We work directly with business owners to grow their companies and prepare for a future exit, and then execute that exit when it's time. We have experience across a large variety of industries: construction, manufacturing, services, tech, distribution, retail, and more. And our clients come from all across the country, mostly for the purposes of this presentation, between 5 and 30 million in revenue. And we focus on what moves the needle, and that includes strategy, sales, operations, leadership, and the all important numbers. So, with that in mind, let's get started. And we'll start here with a quick story. It's one that I see more often than I wish I would. It's a business owner who came to us a couple of years ago looking to sell. She was successful and sharp, but completely burned out. She'd been running the business for 20 plus years, and she was just done. And the problem was that she had waited too long to plan. The business couldn't run without her. Her financials were messy, and emotionally, Finally, she just wanted out, no matter the terms. She ended up taking the first offer that came along, and it was not anywhere near what she wanted, but she needed to get out. If we'd started working together 3 years earlier, she could have cleaned up her books, built a leadership team, and easily doubled what she walked away with. And instead, she left about half the value of the business on the table and had to live with those outcomes through her retirement. So what does waiting really cost you? There's lots of buckets here. Financially, owners who wait until they're burned out and then end up rushing the process often get 20 to 50% less than what their business could have been worth. That's real money, especially if you're looking to use that capital for retirement, reinvestment, or just plain freedom. There's illness and death, so the physical consequences beside the financial cost, problems that crop up when someone suddenly becomes ill or there's a death, that falls to family members to sort it out, and they're very often unprepared to deal with all of this, and it's happening at the worst possible time. Emotional business owners, burnout is dangerous. You're more likely to say yes just to be done. I've had that happen with business owners that were going through the process and were tired going into it and got more tired as the process dragged out. And you want to try and start working on this when you're emotionally strong. You've got to learn the discipline to avoid the deal that isn't right. And when you're running on empty, it's really hard to think strategically. And when it comes to legacy, if you wait too long, you don't control the handoff, you're reacting, not leading, and that impacts how your team, your customers, and even your family experiences the transition. Um, I I think it's really important to understand exit planning isn't just one thing. It isn't just financial. It isn't just strategic. It isn't just operational. It's personal, emotional, and it's built into the entire outlook of the business over a long period of time. So the earlier that you start working on exit, the more options you will have. That I can promise you. Now, let's get a quick pulse. Drop a letter in the chat. So as that's a reminder to me to mention that we do have a chat here and we'd love to hear from you. So also drop into the chat if you're comfortable to let us know who you are. And if you are interested in having a conversation, also let us know that through the chat. Send us your email. If you'd prefer to keep it private, there's an option to do a personal chat either to me, Andi Gray, or to Robin Goldenberg, and we'll certainly follow up with you there. We'd really like to get a little bit of a feel. If you think that you're more than 5 years out, put an A in the chat window. If you're in the 3 to 5 year window, put a B, and if you're way, put a C. I'm always curious to see where our audience is coming from, and Robin will take a look at that in a minute or two and tell us a little bit about what kind of makeup we have. There is no right or wrong answer to the timing of working on an exit. This is just to get you thinking, and wherever you are in the planning process or in the exit window process, today's session is about making sure that you don't leave money, options, or your peace of mind on the table. So, Robin, do we have a guesstimate as to where people are? Should we wait a little bit? And you're on mute right now.
Thank you for the reminder. Looks like A, 5+ years is coming in strong, but I did
Okay.
add if you guys aren't sure, that's okay. Just you can let us know that too.
Okay, great. Well, and I'm glad to hear that there are people here that are 5 years out because that's really going to give you a lot more options in terms of what you do. So let's talk about a framework that we use with our clients. It's what a strong, well-planned exit looks like. There are three clear phases. So the first phase is preparation, 3 to 5 years out, where you lay the groundwork, you record your plans, document your systems, clean up the numbers, reduce your dependency, start to build a transferable business, you increase the size. Often, if you're going to do acquisitions to get some leverage, this is the time to do it. And this is also where you start to think about who might be your owner targets. And we will talk about that a bit more as we go on. Then in stage two comes positioning, and typically this is about 1 to 3 years out, where you're making the business more attractive to buyers. You're talking about building predictable revenue, a growth track that has legs to it. You're expanding your profits, you're strengthening your leadership, you're building a well-oiled machine, and you're forming and testing your exit team as well. So those advisors who are going to work with you through the exit. Finally, the transition is usually a 12-month process leading into the exit. This is where you confirm the value, engage top buying candidates, manage the deal and the handoff, and do that hopefully without panic because you've gone through all three stages. But I will say that most owners do only focus on the last stage, and that's when it's almost too late. The biggest value gets built in the first two stages, and we're going to take a look at each of these stages in more detail. So phase one, preparation. This is where most of the heavy lifting and the real opportunity lives. The goal is to make your business saleable and transferable, even if you're not planning to sell yet. That means expanding the size, profits, and capability of the business. As I said a minute ago, considering acquisitions to give leverage to the business, get financials accurate, consistent, ready for outside eyes. There's no more running on intuition, messy books, or we'll make it up as we go along. You document so that things run the same way, whether you're in the building or not. That means you can let go and you can start letting other people do for you. And you prepare to transfer systems when the time comes by practicing with the transfer now. You develop people and backup who can take the reins when you step back. So one example, we actually went through this transition last year. A client that made a generational transfer. It was under a bit of duress, so they did not have the time to prepare that they would have liked to prepare. And the last year has really been spent with the new management team on a cleanup crew mission. And because of that, they really had a stalled year. Now they've made it through okay, and in everything that we've worked on, they've built the foundation so now they can move forward quickly. But you don't want to lose the time if you don't have to. You do want to get a baseline valuation now. Just think about this like checking on your 401k. You wouldn't put that out and then not look at your statements for years at a time. Same thing here. Check the value of the business regularly. You need an affordable methodology to do that. And if you have any interest in that, we can certainly talk to you about it because we think we've got a really neat system that we use to do that. You also want to learn about how transactions get done. So there's lots of ways to sell a business. You can sell to the employees, a whole group of employees or a couple of employees. A lot of mistake that a lot of business owners make is they think the employees can't afford it. That's not true. There are ways to make it affordable for employees, even those who don't have a lot of assets. So for example, this company that just transitioned had between 20 and 30 million in revenue. There's a sizable company, and the next generation doesn't even own a house yet. But to take on the business because the business was strong enough to afford the transaction. You want to learn more about besides the employees, outsiders, equity investments, family office, where either you create a family office and move to the board level, or you get investment from someone else's family office. And of course, there's ESOPs. So I'm hoping I'm starting, and for those of you who don't know what an ESOP is, it's an employee stock option program, and it is the most tax beneficial option for you if you're willing to put the time in to build one. It's also probably the most productive methodology for any company that is looking to transfer the business. Finally, beyond all of the ways to get a transaction done and learning about that, you also have to start thinking about what's next for you personally. And that often gets overlooked, but it's critical for a smooth transition. So what are you going to do in retirement? And then preparation is all about building a business that works without you, because I got to tell you, that's what buyers will pay for. So, what goes wrong in preparation? This is the phase where you build value, but many owners unknowingly undervalue their business by overlooking a few key things. So, first, they stay too involved in either sales or delivery. They're working in the business, not on the business. And even with a team in place, if the owner is still a major closer or a major problem solvers, buyers will see this and they'll see risk, not strength. Second, there's a concentration risk. If one or two clients represent over 8% each of revenue, that's kind of the magic percentage cutoff, buyers will start to discount. The more heavy the concentration on relying on a few customers, the greater the discount. Or in some cases, they may actually walk away. Diversification creates confidence. It also creates opportunities for the buyers to pick up additional markets, additional services, or additional customers for their products as well. Thirdly, the owners assume that if they're growing, their business is worth more, but growth without margin, without retention, and without systems is just scale with risk, and that's not value. So I would be very careful there. Then many business owners don't track key metrics that buyers care about. Obviously, gross margin is one, customer churn, client lifetime value, productivity measures, the cost to acquire customers, the cost to operate within a particular business segment. Those are the numbers that tell the real story. And lastly, most buyers don't take enough time to shape a narrative. At the essence of it, selling the business is your ultimate sale job. And so every sales presentation you've ever done, you want to have that laid out multiplied by 10. Buyers want to hear, here's why this company is successful, here's what the track it's been on, and why it will keep being successful even when it's out. And you want to do that in words, in pictures, in videos, so that you can send this out to people or go and present to people and they get exactly what you're talking about. So now let's talk about phase two and positioning. That's where you shift from just running the successful business to packaging an asset that others want to own. You have the foundation built, you have a business, it produces revenue, hopefully profits, it has employees. This is the phase where we make the business more valuable in the eyes, not of your eyes, but in the eyes of a buyer. So in this phase, buyers want to see that the company can keep performing without the owner. You want to step back from day-to-day operations, let your team step up. Make sure that your revenue isn't tied to just one or two big clients. I touched on that before, or one product, or just one market. You also, in this phase, want to weed out unprofitable clients and focus on growth markets. If you have to do acquisitions to get this done, you're starting to run out of time because it typically takes about 3 years to get an acquisition done. But if you do it early in this phase, it may actually boost your value enough to make it worth the risk. You want to shift toward recurring revenue or at least predictable cash flow, get contracts in place with employees and with customers, tighten up margins, improve operations, strengthen customer loyalty. And as I said before, continue to craft the business story. It is a presentation. This is all about what makes your company successful, sustainable, and a good investment. In this phase, you want to hone in on your optimal buyers. So you want to identify the form that those buyers will take and the targets. So who are you going to go after? And start the discussion. So to outsiders, this could very well be a customer of yours. It could be a vendor that you work with, or it could be a competitor that's looking to get into your market. There are lots of ways to go about doing this. Tell you, focusing on people that are already familiar with your business and your industry tends to get more value than focusing on just any buyer. Remember that buyers are not paying for potential, they're paying for proof. And so in this phase, you want to make sure that you document proof that this business runs well up to now, it performs it consistently, and then show that everything is in place so it won't fall apart when you as the owner walk away. Now, what happens in this stage that doesn't work so well? First, owners think that their books are fine because their CPA can file taxes, but buyers want managerial accounting. Timely, accurate business focus. They want to be able to see the difference between cost of goods sold and overhead. They want to understand what are the variable costs that can be removed and what are the costs that have to stay with the business. I want to know what it's going to cost to replace you. So if it takes 60 days to close your month, that's going to be a real red flag because it also says you don't have enough control. It's not clear enough where, if it's not clear enough where revenue and profits come from, that's a problem. You need to segregate all of your expenses into the right buckets and use the books to tell the story. Secondly, everything lives in people's heads. Sales scripts, customer history, workflow, you got to get that fixed. If you or someone else gets hit by a bus tomorrow, the company stops. And that's how a buyer sees it. If you haven't already documented everything, now's the time to get it done. And it's good for business too. So, for example, we had a customer. They had a top employee who happened to run their sales organization who was unfortunately at a Christmas party as Santa Claus, had a heart attack, and dropped dead. Why do I tell that story? Because the outside of this, the other side of this story is not only was it a horrible Christmas, but it was also a horrible 2 years for the company as they looked to replace all the knowledge that that head of sales had in his head that they didn't know about or they couldn't get done without him. So you've got to get it down on paper and you've got to make sure that the business does not rely on any one person. If you don't continue to build a leadership team, if your business can't run without you, then the buyer is going to see this and they're going to say it's not worth full value. Another problem, owners put off getting a valuation. They say, I'll worry about that when I'm closer to selling. I hear that all the time. The problem is, if the business isn't where you want it, you've got no time left in this stage to fix it significantly enough to probably get the numbers where you want. The business is the most drivable portion of your asset portfolio. You can grow it faster than you can any investment in the stock market or anything that you're doing at present with your rest of your portfolio, whether that's real estate or other investments. The business can be leveraged, but you're running out of time to do it. And finally, most business owners assume that time is on their side, but markets shift, health issues come up, burnout creeps in, and more time only helps if you use it intentionally. You've got to really work hard in this phase and be dedicated to it. These problems are fixable. These problems that you see on this page are fixable if you catch them early. And that's where the planning process helps you out here. Now, phase 3, this is the final stretch where everything comes together. And the transition's about executing the deal, not scrambling through it. And how this goes depends on how well you handled the earlier phases. But at this stage, we got to assume you've done your homework. Now you get your next to final valuation. Why is it next to final? Because typically these deals can take almost a year to get contracted, which means the state is going to want a final valuation close to the exit of the business to make sure that they're confirming that they're getting their taxes on the real deal. You want to clean up any last minute financial gaps, confirm that you can afford to trade annual net income for a buyout. What do I mean by that? So when a business is sold, you're actually getting the equivalent of several years, hopefully, of net income. That's coming to you in a lump sum, which you can then use to reinvest, to put into investment strategies, and so on. That money is now going to take the place of the money that you used to get from net income from the company. You want to plan how to communicate the transition to your employees and your customers, maybe even your vendors, in a way that builds confidence and continuity. You want to be able to tell them with confidence you're still going to be there and that you have a plan so that that will be the case. You also want to prepare personally. So most business don't realize how emotional this phase can be until they're smack dab in the middle of it and they're running on empty. And finally, you run the deal like a project. There's no rushing it, there's no winging it. When you've planned well, this part isn't scary, it's manageable, and often it can even be exciting because it means you're closing the loop on your life's work and you're actually accomplishing that final mission for the business, which is to secure its future. Now, what blindsides the business at this stage of the deal? Here's the truth. Even business owners who prepare well can get caught off guard in this transition phase. They often delay building a deal team, thinking they'll just figure it out. But M&T is a team sport. You need legal, tax, finance, and good advisors and coaches to get things done right for you and for the business. We're in the middle of completing a deal right now. A brother and a sister. The sister is selling. A sister said, "Look, let's use our cousin who's an attorney to do this deal." The cousin did not understand the nature of the deal and drafted up a contract that was entirely wrong for the transaction. Now, if they'd signed it, it probably wouldn't have been her problem because she still would have gotten her money and she's out. But the form and nature of the business that is being defined in this transaction would have continued to haunt the business as the business moved into the other partner's hands and then downline to that partner's children. So make sure that you have someone who actually knows how to contract these deals. Another mistake is business owners don't prepare the business internally. I've kind of been talking about this all along, but when the deal hits, the team isn't ready to lead or they don't stay motivated. And sometimes key people and even secondary people leave mid-process saying, "Hey, I got to get out of here before the walls cave in." And that then leaves the seller not able to meet their promises to the buyer that they're delivering a whole business. Owners often will keep saying to themselves that they'll have a say in the future. Let me kid you not, you won't. If there's contingency money, it's all at risk. If you're promising employees a future, you actually can't unless you've got it in a contract. You've got to think about what you want to have happen and where the boundaries are on that and what you're willing to let go of in order to get this deal done. And oftentimes, business owners face real dilemmas with that set of decisions. Another problem is that communication often comes too soon or too late. So employees get nervous, customers hear rumors, suddenly you've got a retention issue while you're trying to close. You've got to figure the timing out for all of this and get it right and get the messaging right. Owners misunderstand or underestimate the emotional toll. We've seen people who were sharp and confident. They then get cold feet or crash emotionally at the 11th hour, and that's real. And finally, they try to speed through due diligence. And when the buyers find surprises, the deal slows down, it gets repriced, or it dies. It is worth noting that because of all of these issues and many more, something like 90% of the deals that start never get over the finish line. And that's why we have a job. That's part of the job we play when we're working with our clients in all three stages to get them over the finish line. Once you start a deal, don't overlook this. Once you start a deal, you have a 1 in 10 chance of completing it. That's crazy, but it's real, and it's something you need to deal with and be proactive about heading that off. Now, let me give you a side-by-side comparison. Both real clients, both successful business owners. Unfortunately, the first one waited too long, so she was the late exit. She was the glue holding everything together. There were no systems, no team that could operate without her. And when burnout hit, she was forced to take the first offer. It came in 35% below what the business could have fetched if it had been ready. The second client started 4 years out. We worked together to build out his leadership team, get clear financials, reduce his role in daily operations, and lock in recurring revenues. By the time he was ready, he had multiple offers from multiple buyers, and he sold for 60% more than he would have if he had waited any longer. The difference between these two outcomes: time, preparation, and a game plan. One owner exited on his terms and the other exited under pressure. Think about what you want and what the consequences will be. So this slide is, I think, worth a screenshot. It's what buyers actually look for when they assess your business. On the left, the value drivers. These are things that increase what a buyer is willing to pay. Predictable or recurring revenue, clean financials that show year-over-year stability and or growth, systems, documentation, processes that produce risk, a team without you, no single point of failure, meaning no major dependence on one customer, one vendor, one employee, you, one, etc. You look at your business and see relationships, history, buyers. They're looking for transferability, systems, and predictability. You say, I've got great customer relationships, and a buyer asks, will they stay if you leave? You say we're busy, we're growing fast. A buyer looks at your margins and asks, is it profitable growth or is it just scale with stress? You trust your team. A buyer wants to know they'll stay, wants proof that they can run the show without you around. You think your books are handled, but buyers want reporting that's investment grade, not just tax ready. So think about the last slide and then flip the lens for a moment to this. This is where the owners get blindsided. And this is a slide that I want you to remember as you think about, is it worth it to get started working on this now? So now that you've seen how buyers think, let's revisit your readiness, but with a little more clarity. Give yourself a 1 to 5 score on each of these. So just pull out your notebook and just write down 1 to 5. 1 is low, 5 is high. Based on your real standards, can you step away for a few weeks without fire drills? Are your financials buyer ready? Accrual-based, timely, and accurate? Is your revenue base safe from concentration risk? Can your team make decisions and drive results without you in the loop? And I would add to that 100%. Do you have a clear plan in place to help you play this entirely different game and keep your business on track when things get messy? And do you actually know what your business is worth right now? If you're scoring less than 4 in any area, that's not necessarily a crisis, but it should be a call to action. These are the exact gaps that cause value erosion during a deal, or in worst case scenario, kill the deal entirely. And these are also the areas where planning ahead gives you leverage and options. So with that, I'm going to recap and give you some takeaways. Before we move into the next steps, let's pull it all together. First, waiting has real hidden costs. I've seen good owners leave 30 to 50% of their business value on the table simply because they waited too long and ran out of steam. And I've seen other business owners, I was just talking this morning with someone who have walked away from the table only to close the business up. 2 real examples this morning that we were discussing. One was a restaurant owner, couldn't find anyone locally to buy the business. The business sat on their shoulders. Nobody wanted a business that the owner was arriving at 3 in the morning and sleeping overnight in the business to be able to get up early enough for the next day. The second, nice, successful hardware store, but they couldn't find an owner that wanted to come in and compete, and they really couldn't make the case that this business could be transferred, could be successful, and could grow in the market that they were in. Just 2 really simple examples from a casual conversation this morning. Second, exiting isn't one big step. It's a series of phases: preparation, positioning, and transition. And most of the value, I will tell you, is built into the first 2. You do your homework there. The third phase then has value. And then next, it's not how you see your business that counts. You're selling, you're not going to be there. It's how the buyer sees it. If they see opportunity, They are interested. If they see risk, they lower their offer or even walk away. You need a presentation that's really strong, that tells the story over a long period of time, and then tells the story about the future of the business. Just because you don't intend to own this business anymore doesn't mean you should stop planning. Build a 5-year plan that the future buyer can take on and run with. This is what we say. You don't have to be ready to sell. You have to be ready to prepare. That's what separates a clean, profitable exit from a painful one that does not achieve all that the owner needs. And lastly, let's just recap here. You built a business that matters. You put your heart and your soul into it. The exit shouldn't be the messy part. Today, I hope you got insight that most business owners don't get until it's too late, and you've got 3 ways to turn it into action. Download the checklist, use it to start conversations with your team, your spouse, and your advisors. If you're serious about your timeline, book a consult. It's 20 minutes. We'll look at where you stand and what a smart runway might look like. We're happy to give you some advice and some suggestions. And then third, watch for the replay and resources in your inbox. We will be sending you get everything that you need to work on this process. Review, share, dig deeper. I want to close with the thought that exiting isn't luck. It isn't a business owner got lucky or they hit the ball out of the park because they were in the right time at the right place. It's about planning over time with the right guidance. And I will put a stake in the ground and ask you to do the same. It starts today, not someday. So if anything that we talked about today hits close to home, here's how we help. We work with privately held business owners who want to build a stronger business now and have a clean exit later on. And that includes everything from financially modeling to developing your team to preparing for a success or transition. But here's the difference. We don't just give you a report and walk away. We stay involved. We help owners implement. We keep you and your team on track. And if you're feeling like you need a partner, not just a plan, that's absolutely what we do. So thank you again for spending some time here today. It helps me care not just about where your business is, but where it's going. I want to hear your story. I want to hear about your business. We've covered a lot here, and I assume you're going to have questions about valuation, timing, your team, anything else. Now's a great time to ask. Drop your questions into the chat right here. And if you want to talk offline, let us know one-on-one. Just grab a slot for a quick consult. It's free. It's a real conversation, no pressure. And there's also then a QR code here for our next webinar. And remember, the best exits are planned years before they happen. Your next step doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be forward. Please talk about what has to happen here. Come and talk to us. We'd love to help you with that process. And with that, we're going to go to questions.
Would help if
So,
I unmuted myself again.
okay,
Here I am.
there you
We
go.
have a couple questions. So we
Great.
have a question from Len. He said, can strategy leaders assist in setting up an ESOP and employee ownership possibility early in the process based on a 3 to 5 year business handover? And what are the key elements in this process?
Okay, so ESOPs are not simple to set up, but they are extremely valuable. And the reason they're valuable is because if you do it correctly, there are no taxes paid. So you're not going to give up 40% of the profits on your deal to state and federal taxes. And yes, we can absolutely help you with that. It's going to be a team of people. It is not the people that you're working with today. These are all specialists, legal, accounting, finance, and ESOP administration. Those are all tools or people who will bring tools to the table. And generally you start with is an ESOP evaluation. So you don't get into an ESOP, you evaluate the conditions of the business right now, and you get a roadmap of where you are and how realistic it is and what you have to fix in order to get through an ESOP. So you're actually getting an action plan to work on before you start into the process. But I will tell anybody here that has a significant amount of revenue that I would seriously consider ESOPs. And not only is it something that is tax advantage, but you can also do it in stages. So you can step away in pieces. You don't have to sell it all or nothing. You can also move to the board level, so you continue to have revenue coming to you and you can watch the process unfold beneath you. I would absolutely encourage you, Len, to think about it, and I'd love to talk with you further about it. But these things do take time, so get started now.
All right, great. The next question we have is everything still runs through me. How do I even begin to step back without the business falling apart?
You're normal. First of all, you're absolutely normal. That's how every business starts, whether it was Microsoft or the shop next door. They all started with an owner, a dream, and an owner who knew how to do something and built the business around them in order to do what they loved and then expanded from there. How do you start the process? So you lay out a map of what the business looks like. When we work with clients on this problem, I would say 90% of the time the business is heavily reliant on the business when we walk in. We start by building a 5-year plan. Why? Because that gives us a context. It helps the owner to start seeing the future. And in that 5-year plan, we build a roadmap of here are the steps that we're going to have to walk through from beginning to end. And then we start working on that 5-year plan on the tactical side. So what are the things that we're going to have to do tactically to get from here to there? It may be an evaluation of the financials, correcting reporting, evaluating employees, figuring out if everybody's in the right seat on the bus, who's going to stay, who's going to go, customers do you have that are correct. Remember, every time you get involved in a decision, there's a question you want to be asking, which is, who else can do this for me? Who else can I hand this to? We're working right now with an owner who went through our program years ago and is now bringing it back to prepare it eventually for the next stage. And he has 6 of his executives going through the program this time with him. And what they're all learning is what are the responsibilities of stepping up? How do they lead downwards? How do they become better managers and better executives? How do they become better custodians of the business? And how do they all operate in concert so that the business is moving smoothly forward? Document. Document will really help you a lot. Lay out a plan. This is what I think it will look like. And you start with that. It doesn't mean that that is all going to end up that way. You may make changes along the way, and that's okay. But what you do want to do is you want to create this model of where we're going so you can follow it. I would say the same is true if you're going to go through this entire exit planning process that we've laid out today, which is get it down on paper. And that's something that may be hard for you because you're talking about something new, and we can help you put that plan on paper. And that will really help the business owner then to stay on point when things get dicey, things don't go their way, they're running into walls, and they're starting to lose hope.
Awesome. The next question is about architect firms. So, how many architectural firm sales or transitions have we done personally?
A bunch. We work a lot with architectural and engineering firms, and I believe that that's because we are so process driven. And I will tell you, my father was an architect, and so I grew up as a little girl sitting at the drafts table and watching what he did. And I get the nature of engineering systems, and that's actually how we built strategy leaders, is engineered systems that can deliver results that are rock solid over a long period of time.
Awesome. Thank you. We have two more questions. Um, we've plateaued the last couple of years. Is that a red flag for potential buyers, and how do I turn that around?
You betcha. Big red flag because the buyer is buying future potential. If you've plateaued already, they're going to assume that the next place in line is a decline. You've got to look at where the plateau is coming from. So are the customers running out and dying off? Are you losing to competitors? Is your market at the end of its lifespan? And you have to start thinking about what else are you going to do in order to get past that. It may also be your sales team is no longer effective, your marketing is not effective. So there could be a lot of causes. And again, if you're running into that problem, talk to us. We can help you do some diagnostics on that. One of the, depending on how much time you have, one of the best ways to get out of it may actually be an acquisition. And we can help you look at what would the role of an acquisition look like in terms of changing the game. The other may be, as I said, depending on where the sources are, strengthening your sales organization or your marketing, figuring out, I've lost to some competitors. What do I do? Do I go and acquire a competitor, or do I figure out what else my customers want? So I need more customer conversations and then start offering my customers something that my competitors can't. Or are we at the end of the road on a particular market and we really need to jump to a new market? So is there a natural transition from being a buggy whip manufacturer to starting to make Model T cars?
Great. Thank you. And the last question is, how do you know what your business is really worth, and how often should I be updating that number?
Okay. I will tell you, every business owner has an idea of what their business is worth. They go on anecdotal information from another business owner they know who sold out or who says, I know what mine is worth, so yours must be worth similar. That's not facts. And you really need to do facts when you're doing this. We can get a valuation done. We can get it done inexpensively and quickly, and it will give you a ballpark value of where your business is and under what conditions. So whether you're intending to sell it to outsiders or insiders or do a private equity transaction, really matter. We can help you understand all of those conditions. We can also help you figure out what it would be worth under liquidation, although that's never my recommendation unless you're out of time. So come and talk to us. We can get a valuation done, and then we can update those valuations annually cost, which I would recommend that you actually be revaluing your business annually. Make sure that you're on track with growing value. Learn how to use that value to reward your management team. So don't just reward them for growing sales or growing net income. Reward them for the real value that they're creating in the business. And you can use evaluation to do that. You also can use that valuation to make sure you've got insurance in place, and to begin to talk to your employees about what you might want to do with the business if they're interested. There's a lot of ways you can use it, but I would get a valuation done. I think a reason a lot of people don't do valuations is because historically they've been a long, laborious, and really expensive. I'm talking big five-figure fees to get valuations done. You don't need to spend that money. You just need to get an understanding of where the business is right now, because when it comes time to sell, it's going to be a negotiation anyway. You just want to make sure you have a good understanding of where you are, whether you need to do something now to boost that value in order to fit it into your retirement plan, or if you're where you need to be, you use it from here forward to reward your executives for building additional value.
Awesome. Thank you. That's all the questions we got.
Yay! Thank you all for coming today. I really appreciate your interest. I look forward to meeting you. One of the reasons I got into this business is because I love the stories of business owners. I love to hear about how you've built your business and what it is that you're doing. And I would love to talk to every one of you.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Anna. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.